1917. Must have been 24th of October, I think. You lose track of the simple things in war. Names, dates, all that kind of rubbish. The Battle of Passchendaele, Western France. This day, whenever it was, has branded itself in my mind for life. It still does. It was 5 a.m. The familiar droning of Major Harrigan blasted away, getting louder and louder as I finally woke up. It was pretty much our CO, our commanding officer, a harsh, stern man at that. Drowsily, we all awoke. We just had to be on our high alert at this time. It was the usual routine, stand to and all that crap. With click after click my aching body, I finally got to my feet. It was the usual smell of disease, usual signs of mud, pools of murky, ominous water, hiding many secrets as we would often find out when clearing out and tidying the trench. Tidying the trench. Soldiers were already clearing it out. Some got up earlier. I strained. My eyes were just about getting used to the intense and impassive grey clouds. Immediately, though, something caught my attention. There were two young-looking soldiers putting on trench coats onto another soldier. It was only pretty weird because, well, this soldier that they were dressing up was literally just standing there. And, you know, like, if they lost grip of his arms, even slightly, he just drooped down like a rag doll. He still had a gas mask on too, but there wasn't any gas. Still better safe than sorry, I suppose. Must have been uncomfortable, though. Well, anyway, they dragged him a few meters to the edge of the trench, positioned him carefully and precisely before stepping back. And they looked almost in admiration of what they'd done, and then with nods they just left. This soldier was absolutely still. No need to stare. Deadly serious, eh? Harrigan's arm clamped down onto my shoulder. It scared me out of my wits. I was confused. What's going on, sir? The bodies. Using them, my dear chap. If any of them get shot, we know what those Jerry bastards are up to, preparing for an attack. They're dead. They won't feel a thing, you know. And then Harrigan walked off, smoking and puffing on his pipe. And then I noticed, dotted along the entire trench, as far as I could see, were bodies in similar positions, standing upright and still, all with gas masks. Some looked like they were just asleep, but others, more chillingly, had their weak, dead eyes just staring right ahead into no man's land. I had to go up close and personal to see that. Ugh, it gave me the chills. These bodies, once people, were just now being used as dummies, as if they meant nothing, but still, in war you couldn't let your emotions get the better of you, and they just weaken you down. The morning went on and dragging itself slower than me, I must admit, but by noon I heard a familiar voice. Greg, fancy tea? Or some coffee? It was Private Locke, who always had a smile carved into his tired face. He poured me some coffee, bloody strong coffee too. Some soldiers were watching out into the empty no man's land. Sometimes it was difficult to tell the soldiers and the dead apart. I scanned the land ahead. It always seems, well, odd. You know, almost as if it was cut off from everything else in the world. I scanned on, standing on my tiptoes as there was a body in my way. I'm not a particularly tall man. I looked left to right, right to left, before I looked back at the body. The arm that was, well, simply flat down the muddy edge of the trench was now flopped down. Its finger, his finger, well, the only finger, was pointing down at the ground. I was left staring at it for what seemed like ages. I presumed that the arm must have just fallen. I mean, it's not easy to leave a dead body standing up in the exact position. I just passed it off and went to sit down and clean my rifle. I had the distraction of a body floating on its back in the murky water, just floating past me. That was usual by now. But this one, open mouth, dry lips, rotting teeth, and, disturbingly, an imploded face right in the middle. It looked like if you push a coat of mirror inwards and everything is drawn into that one point. Well, that's what it looked like. Never have I ever seen anything like that before. I just cleaned my rifle more vigorously now, just looking away, my eyes shut, hoping that when I turned back the body had drifted off somewhere else. Eventually it had. I glanced across the trench once more, and to my horror, that body with the one finger, it moved again, but its right arm bent to the left, still pointing, but not at the ground, in the direction of that body. I could see it, alone in the distance, just stopping and bumping endlessly at the zigzag corner of the trench. Horrified was an understatement, but I chose to ignore it. I thought it was due to a lack of sleep, I was hallucinating or something, but I certainly wasn't hallucinating what happened next. Wisps of clear white mist engulfed the dead man's arm, and eventually him, then the trench itself. Gas. Harrigan was barking for us to put our gas masks on. I threw my rifle to the ground, and luckily it didn't go off, and I found my gas mask and just briskly put it on as quick as I could. It was tight and uncomfortable, but much rather that than breathing in potential gas. I looked up through the damaged and aged glass of my gas mask, and the white mist had grasped hold of the whole of no man's land. Never before had I seen something like this. Everyone was getting ready, standing by. I picked up my rifle and stood at the edge of the trench. Next to me there was a different body. He had a captain's cap on. It was the recently fallen Captain Stubbs. He wore a wonky gas mask too, but what made me jump was the fact that his head was turned and was staring directly into my eyes. His lifeless, gazing eyes just wouldn't look away. But chillingly, his head was stiff, unmoving. He'd only been dead a mere 12 or 14 hours at least. I mean, I don't know much about dead bodies, but I don't think his body could have just stiffened up completely like that, and it looked completely stiff as well. I looked away, uneasily, and then I heard Harrigan shouting behind me, annoyed. Annoyed that someone had played a very bad joke. He warned everyone not to turn the heads of the dead bodies again. Hours and hours had gone past and nothing had happened, but we trained all our focus onto no man's land, still covered in mist. Harrigan was bickering over the phone to some high-ranking superior, saying that we should mount an attack on the Jerrys, since the mist, covered us perfectly. The rest of us were silent. Then, out of nowhere, bullets whizzed mercilessly straight towards us. I dropped my rifle and covered my ears, hiding my face down in the mud. Why, I don't know. I should have just dropped and taken cover. But there were no screams, literally whizzing bullets, just for a second, then silence. For minutes, I remained as I was. All I could hear was the howling wind, and then slowly peered out, and the mist was still there. But all around me, the entire trench was littered, and I do literally mean littered, with the fallen bodies of everyone in my battalion. Friends, soldiers I'd barely even talked to, even Harrigan, fallen beside the field telephone. How the fuck I survived and nobody else had, I don't know. It was not a nightmare, and I was not imagining it. All the propped up bodies remained. Stubbs was still staring ahead, his body still turned. But as I inspected all the bodies, not bothering to crouch because of the mist, I noticed one detail. All of their eyes were open, and all were in the same direction. The mist. No man's land. Oh, the exact same positions. They were all just fixated on them. You could clearly see that through the gas masks. All I could hear was my hoarse breathing, getting quicker and quicker. I just had to take a look at the fingerless body again. Instinct, I suppose. His right arm was now bent over his neck completely. Like Stubbs, stiff. The one remaining finger was pointing out towards no man's land. Picking up my rifle and not giving a care in the world, I walked into no man's land. Walking here, it felt alone and uneasy, but I felt really like I was nowhere, all in this endless white. I daren't utter a word. I felt my own voice would scare me. As I headed deeper and deeper into the mist, it got darker and darker. All I could hear was whispering, but loads of different, bodiless and weightless voices out of sync, coming from nowhere. They were almost calming, peaceful. There's nothing creepy about them, until I realised that there was nobody else in no man's land except me. Not in my immediate vision, anyway. I couldn't be imagining it, surely. It was almost like they were guiding me on. I was walking on endlessly now. I wanted to turn back now. At least I'd feel much safer in the trench. Here, I was right out in the open, heading towards all sorts of unknown. I went to turn back, but staggered back in horror. Dotted in a line, a perfect, straight line, were the dummy bodies, all staring through the gas masks. But each of them was tilted to the right, just a bit more differently than each other, so that they could all gaze lifelessly at me. I didn't take my sight off of them. I just walked back, staring at them, rifle at the ready, just in case. But I was heading further back into no man's land. I just didn't want to go past those bodies. What even were they? Like they just couldn't be. I don't even know. Eventually, they disappeared, consumed by the fog. I then turned back, and now all the voices were becoming far less frequent, and with each step they grew quieter and quieter, until they were all just gone. That was the last thing I ever heard in this mist. I don't know how long has passed since I even stepped foot in this mist, but I'm still here, still lost, still continuing on. There's literally nothing here, not even the sound of gentle wind. No crackling artillery, no shouting orders from officers, not even people. Just the white mist. It doesn't even get any darker now, so I don't even know what date it is now. I don't think I'll ever know. But at the time of writing this, I still have no explanation for what happened. Was it even fog? Whatever it is, it has condemned me to being trapped here until the very last step I take.